Hey everybody, and welcome back to Goody and Johnny Mo with the movies. We have been gone a long time, couple of months, 2 months, 3 months, something around there. But we are bringing you episode 45 tonight, edging closer and closer to episode 50. And with episode 45, we are going to be doing A Quiet Place Part 2, which we did see opening weekend.
Is that the official title, Part 2, or just
Yeah,
2?
Quiet Place Part 2.
Part 2.
Yeah, and we saw that opening weekend, which was back in June. Was it the first week in June? Or end of May?
It was a solid month ago.
Yeah, it was at least 4 or 5 weeks ago. Yeah. So we're way behind on this
either
review.
Very end of May or early June, for sure.
Yeah, we've both been kind of busy, so we have not been able to do a review.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, like the whole, like, I just don't feel like the whole movie thing is in full swing where you're just like sitting there going like, oh, there's so many movies coming out. What are we going to see next? It's almost like, is something coming out?
Well, right now it's like still selective with what's coming out. I mean, there are some titles now that are going to be coming up. You're going to have Black Widow, of course, is coming up, and then Suicide Squad's coming out.
Right.
So there are going to be some titles coming out soon, at least in the superhero genre.
Yeah.
But with that, let's do our drinks of the night.
Well, I am drinking my usual standard of Guinness.
Old Faithful.
I think I opened up episode 1 with the Guinness, so you can always go back to Guinness. Even though they've changed their product a little bit, it's still not, undrinkable. But, as always, drink it out of a Guinness glass.
I'm drinking a Montauk Summer Ale. It's one of their seasonals out here on Long Island, out of a Montauk glass.
Oh, see, that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it.
There it is.
And I'm wearing my Mr. Incredible shirt. And I think that is like an official, like, Incredibles. Like, that is Mr. Incredible.
That's Mr. Incredible.
I like that.
And that's you, Mr. Incredible. So, guys, with that, cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Please, again, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us on a podcast, please try to share this, like, comment, subscribe. We love seeing our followers and talking to you guys and engaging at any point that we can.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends. Let them know about this channel. We're trying to grow it. It's small. It's a little engine that could, but we're slowly moving along.
Yeah.
But guys, with that, let's get into the episode.
Okay, I'm gonna take another big sip. I like my Guinness.
So, A Quiet Place Part 1 came out a couple years ago.
Is that what it was called, A Quiet Place Part 1?
No, just A Quiet Place.
That's what I thought. Okay.
John Krasinski directed it, starred in it, along with his wife, Emily Blunt. And that film, I thought, was very unique, very well done.
Yeah, it was really good, I thought.
I don't think there's a word spoken in the film for like the first almost like 30 minutes of the movie. Maybe 25, but I mean, it's a very impactful opening.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't know that I really knew John Krasinski that much at that point because that was before I started watching The Office. Believe it or not, I only got into watching The Office in the last year and a half, and that movie came out a good 2 years ago.
At least 2, yeah.
Yeah, so John Krasinski was not somebody that I really knew.
But that whole movie ends kind of on a cliffhanger where, unfortunately, spoilers beware, John Krasinski sacrifices himself to save his 2 kids. So the 2 kids help out the mom who's trying to protect their newborn. And she literally has a baby on this final night of the end of the movie. And the daughter is hearing impaired, and her dad's trying to basically like make her a hearing aid that will work. So she gets near this almost like PA system, and it, I guess, like amplifies the frequency of her hearing aid that she has, or her implant that she has. And when she puts it up next to the PA, it like amplifies its frequency, and then the creatures that are attracted to sound, it drives them crazy to the point where like it almost like gives them like a stroke.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was the creatures were so interesting, like original, like something that was different.
Yep.
And
but
it
like
was
you said,
mysterious.
Like, the way the movie ends is that like they didn't save the world. They just
saved themselves.
They have discovered a chink in the armor.
Yes.
But so many people on the planet are dead. How do you how do you
spread the word?
To draw a parallel in Independence Day when they figured out what to do, they were able to all the different mobile armies, whatever, were able to communicate around the globe and, using
They use Morse code.
Morse code. But, these guys are literally just hanging out, in the mountains by themselves going, oh, I know how to kill these guys. I know how to kill a couple of them.
Right.
And it works. But, how does that translate to saving humanity around the world, They don't really get into that.
So the end of the film, you're basically seeing, you're seeing on the monitors, I think like it was at least one, if not two more creatures start running because they hear the blast of the shotgun. And they're coming, and basically like the mom's there with the shotgun loaded, and the daughter has like the hearing aid with the amp ready to like turn on because they know like another one's coming. And that was a pretty good ending. I thought that was really interesting. And now we go to part two, and the opening of A Quiet Place Part Two is really nice because it takes us back to the first day.
Yeah, the beginning.
And you see John Krasinski's alive. He's in the very opening of this film, and
everybody's doing stuff,
right,
normal
like,
things,
just like a typical like summer day,
games,
And it was so cool to see how these creatures like just started to basically appear.
Yeah, and in my head, I was sitting there going like, oh, this is a prequel, but only the opening, whatever, 15 minutes was a prequel, and then the rest of the movie took place later.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And you still don't know like where they came from.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because they make it like, I think there are a couple of logic holes in this movie, just in terms of what exactly happened and how. Now, at the end of the day, I'm also a big fan of, like, you don't need all the answers. Because the people in the movie, they didn't get the memo on exactly what happened. They're just dealing with stuff that's going on and, trying to stay alive. So I kind of get that vibe where it's like, you're in the dark just like everybody else. But even still,
right.
Looking at what's happening, and I'm like, okay, so I would like to think that these creatures came from another planet.
Yeah, I think that's the logical thought behind all this.
And they kind of show like these almost like meteorite type things coming out of the sky that are going to crash land.
Yes.
And
that's what it looked like. It doesn't look like a ship. It looks like a meteorite.
Exactly.
Yes.
And maybe it's just like, a meteorite ship. I don't know. Were these things aimed at the Earth by somebody else, or this is just how they travel from planet to planet type of deal, and they just, wherever they land, I think they show up and they kick some butt.
Yeah.
But I think, and they look pretty cool. They're like creepy. They like, they're what do you call it? Like langy.
Yeah.
Like they got long arms and.
Yep, their limbs.
They almost like move like somewhat like spider-like almost. And with odd angles and stuff. They got a really cool look to them, and they're apparently really strong and really deadly, and they have no problem killing people. But I think one of the problems, and I think we talked about this too, is that I don't feel that they're that intelligent. Like, they're almost animalistic, reacting to stimuli and just going after it. And you sit there and go like...
I think they're very instinct-based.
Yeah. And it's like, were these guys driving spaceships? It doesn't look like they could have been. And if these were just like, maybe there's somebody else driving the spaceship and they just let all these guys out to, wipe everybody out. But you don't get any hint of that these are the only monsters.
So like, these could be like the foot soldiers, so to speak. The people like the real brains behind it all.
Maybe those people are somewhere else, but you don't but
you don't see that.
But and you think you would have, because I think the time frame of the sequel is, it's over a year later, right?
It's immediately after the end of the first film.
Right,
like,
but that's still like day, I don't know, 267 or 300 or 400.
Yeah, it's over a year.
It's I think it's over a year. I think it was like day 467 or whatever it was.
Right.
And I'm sitting there like, okay, so if there was somebody in charge somewhere else that was like, letting all these monsters kill off humanity, like they pretty much did a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And like you would have thought that if there was somebody else behind the scenes, that they would have said, okay, they would have just come down and taken over. But they really do present it like this is it. These are the monsters.
Yeah.
So you just got to sit there and say, okay,
We just deal with the information that's in front of you.
yeah, like but and so I think one of the things that you brought up too is it's like they're not immune to gunfire.
Well, they kind of are. Like their skin is protected, which is why they can't. They can be shot, but they're not really hurt by it. It's not that they're bulletproof,
Yeah, I guess like when
but they have a very hard outer shell.
when the sound screws them up, like they kind of flare out,
Yeah, and you
then
can
you
see,
kind
like,
of
the membranes. Right.
get into their membranes.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, so people are shooting at them with guns. Like at the end of the day, like the military has much stronger weaponry.
Well, if you're hitting them with a bazooka,
Yeah,
I'm sure that
or
would be
even
very
like
different.
like even like armor piercing bullets. Like the guy with his shotgun at home and the guy with his revolver at home. I think like military grade style are like
Might be
like
different.
machine guns and AK-47s.
Right.
Like you just find it hard to believe that they weren't. They were able to wipe out everybody, armies, everybody. Like everybody's wiped out, like or close to it.
I think their speed gives them a huge advantage
Yeah.
against like armies. That I don't know. Like you'd have to show me that.
Yeah,
so
like,
that I could
because
see
at the
it.
end of the day, it's like it's not that they showed up in the 1800s. They showed up in 21st century America,
Right.
Earth. Whereas, like
There's plenty of
we
countries
got
that have a solid military.
yeah, even like bombs and like it
Right.
wouldn't. I have find it hard to believe, but I think that's just that's the premise of the movie. That's just that's what happened, and if you can buy that and get past that, you enjoy the movie for what it is.
Yeah.
But I think I just have those nagging questions where, and I think the thing that annoyed me is that there were three nagging questions. The nagging question was that, one, how did they get here? They just appeared animalistic.
Right.
Two, they shouldn't be that invulnerable that like nobody was able to kill them, with all the weaponry. And I think the third thing that I found that this is what tipped me over a little bit is, we find out that they don't swim,
Yeah,
So,
and you know what? And that
they're-
was-
I don't know if they're allergic to water or they drown or whatever.
I just don't think they know how to swim.
Yeah, and I guess they drown.
Like maybe the planet they come from doesn't have a lot
Right.
of water.
So you sit there and you say, okay, so what happens is people find refuge on islands and they're protected because they're surrounded by water.
Right.
And you sit there and say, okay, how did these guys bridge the gap between solar systems and star systems, but they can't go across the river? Like even like ants have figured out a way to get across the river. They just create a little boat out of a leaf and they all go across. Like even if you're an animal, like how could you be smart enough to go from one planet to another, but not smart enough to figure this out? Okay, well, they're animals. Okay, well, guess what? Animals have figured this out too. The dumbest animals on Earth have figured out how to go across the water. They just, they even if they can't swim. And I'm like, I think that's what strained me a little bit. I'm like, really? That's, so if they didn't land in Australia, the whole continent was safe.
But to me, like it's funny because I actually thought that was an interesting part of the movie when that happens. So,
Well, it's interesting.
so-
It's interesting until you start thinking about it, going, "Wait a minute, how could that be?"
But I mean, Cillian Murphy's in this film, and he plays one of the main protagonists of it.
He's the guy that Emily Blunt in the Family Fun.
Like they basically like run into him.
Also, just shout out, love Emily Blunt. Like,
Yeah.
I love
She
love
was-
her as an actress. She's in so many movies that I like. Wasn't she in the one with Tom Cruise with the time?
Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Time, Edge of Tomorrow, Edge
Yeah.
of Tomorrow. Like, loved her in that. Loved her in this. Loved her in the first one.
Yeah.
Loved her in Girl on the Train.
That's right. She was in that. She was in The Devil Wears Prada. She was in that film too.
Oh, who did she play in that?
She's one of like the assistants.
Oh, okay. Not
Her and
not
Anne
the main
Hathaway.
protagonist and not Anne Hathaway.
She was the one who, yeah, she was the one who sat across from Anne Hathaway.
Oh, okay. Just really, really like her. Like, she's one of those people where, like,
Oh,
starts,
she was in Mary Poppins too.
yeah, you start seeing her in a lot of movies, and
Mm-hmm.
you sit there and when you start to think about it, you're like, oh, I liked her in that and that and that.
I'm sure there's other
and
films
that,
that
and
I'm
that.
even forgetting, but
You know,
like,
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm
she's
sure she's in some early films that like you didn't even know who she was.
right. Yeah.
You know, that's one of those things where you see a movie, and then 20 years later you see it again. And you go, oh my God, Emily Blunt was in it. I didn't even know it because she wasn't anybody
At the
in,
time
at the
when you
time.
saw it, yeah.
Yeah,
No, I thought she was fantastic. She carries the film really well in her
yeah, I know
scenes.
she does.
The two kids are even great. You know, they almost like to, you know, it's funny the son is like very scared and nervous, similar to like the first film, and it really rolls over into this film. And it's like there's such a character arc for just about all of the characters in this movie. There's a nice character arc for Emily Blunt, for the son, for her daughter, and for Cillian Murphy. Like these guys go through a nice change. And it's just it was such a nice progression to see. And you know, you figured, okay, they know how to kill these things, so
Yeah.
it's going to be like a one trick pony show where like every time they run into this thing, okay, I know what I'm doing to kill it. And they kind of stop that like almost right away. Like they end up using that method one more time to kill another one, and then after that, like they stop it. Like there was something that happens to like this little portable sound system that the daughter was carrying, and she couldn't use it anymore.
Yeah, because eventually, things are going to run out of batteries or lose power.
Right.
Like, and it's, when you got to be ridiculously quiet, you can't really go anywhere or do anything. It's kind of hard to do what you need to do.
But there's basically a scene where Cillian Murphy and the daughter, Emily Blunt's daughter, start walking through, and they basically get like attacked and almost like ambushed by this these people that are living near these boats, like on the dock, right near the water.
Oh yeah,
Right, and then so the one point, like they end up going. Cillian Murphy ends up getting into the water, and when that happens, the creatures start coming.
yeah. One of the questions I think even you had was like, okay, so, the where the dock is like right across from where the island is, where everybody's safe, and you got all these like, crazy animalistic boat people like doing stuff,
Yeah.
and you sit there. And
They're
you go,
basically almost cannibals at this point.
yeah, and it's almost like, why didn't they just ever go into a boat and either attack the island that they literally can see, because I'm telling you, like the people on that island, like they're having fires, they're having barbecues,
Life
they're
is
playing
almost
music,
normal.
like they know they're there. They can probably see them and hear them. So it's like, one, why didn't they try and take it over? Or two, why didn't they
Yeah.
just join and say, hey, let's just, what? Maybe we don't got to be animals. Let's just get in a boat,
Right.
and go over
And
there
just
and
go.
figure it out. But so that was a little weird.
I mean, it's definitely the one thing I kept looking at as we're going through all this. When when they first run into Cillian Murphy, and then when they run into these like cannibals, pretty much, I'm kind of wanting to see what the rest of the world is like. As I'm seeing this, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I could see this here in like these little small towns. What's it like in a big city?
And you know what?
What's it like in other countries?
And you don't know.
You don't.
Because they don't know, because
Yeah.
you're basically at their point
But that's
of view.
kind of, but like to your point before, it's kind of like you're given as much information as the
they have.
characters have.
It's almost it's kind of like The Walking Dead. It's like nobody knows what's going
Well,
on.
that's kind of like what I'm
anywhere
picturing
else
almost.
in the world.
Yeah.
You're
It's
all
just
the way
here.
around. One of the things I told my wife was like, you sit there and say, okay, you got The Walking Dead, and it takes place in this certain geographic area, and there's like 7 different groups or settlings or kingdoms,
Right.
whatever they are. This ocean, whatever. Ocean, all these different places, and you got to sit there and say, okay, there's got to be other. Go to the next state, and you're gonna find the same thing. And nobody's
Right.
talking to each other, but stuff is going on. It's not like the only people that survive are in this area. There's all these little areas around the country, around the world, and you don't see any of that because there's no way to communicate. But you got to assume that there's stuff going on.
It was a really cool thing when Cillian Murphy gets to the island, because he's like so like struck when he's looking that, like what John was saying before, they're having like fire pits, they're roasting marshmallows, they're camping out there. There's these little homes. It's almost like bungalows, like house bungalows that you'd find on like a little island or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's these like families that are there,
and they're having a good time.
yeah, like they're living life as if nothing else is going on.
But you know what? What it's a shame though is because by them going there, if they wound up bringing like one of the monsters was like a
Yeah,
stowaway
it
on
was
a
like a
boat,
stowaway, like on a boat.
and it got to the island,
Yep.
and it's like, you would think like, I don't know, you would think like these people would have guards, like posting, like
Almost like watching over.
watching over, just making sure, because I mean the island isn't, I mean I guess it is a pretty big island.
Yeah, because there's roads. 'Cause
Yeah.
remember they drove on
Yeah,
it. And
it's
they
not
had
just
that
like
car.
but still, it's like I don't know, like you'd almost want to be like, all right, we're safe here for now, but like
We
we
have to keep
really
moving.
should.
Yeah.
Well, there's nowhere to move to, but we
No, no, no.
we
not
should.
there, but like
Yeah,
we have to protect it.
yeah, we got to make sure that even
Yeah.
like again, even like if somebody comes behind a boat, you want to see them coming and say, "Hey, who are you?" As opposed to maybe 20 guys with guns show up in a boat in the middle of the night and start killing people, like because at the end of the day, and this even goes to The Walking Dead. At the end of the day, other humans are more dangerous in many cases, or
And the
or
dead.
as just as dangerous as the zombie threat
dead,
or
yeah.
these monster threats.
You know, so we end up with the daughter and Cillian Murphy. The daughter's basically trying to find this signal, right?
Yeah.
Like she's trying to trace back this radio signal because it's strong, so it has to be close and nearby. And they basically track it all the way to this island that has this giant antenna. So this is where this radio station's coming in from.
Yeah.
So they get to the radio station and like it's abandoned. There's nothing there. But the daughter wants to use her hearing device to try to maybe trigger anything with the speakers to, of course, get the word out that these things can be killed by that, or at least
right.
show people that they can be hurt. And of course, there's a big like dramatic scene where the creature that makes it to the island ends up making it, of course, following them to the radio station. And it was a really good like heart pounding moment because you had that going on. You had the son who was injured by a bear trap. He's in
Oh yeah, so that was at the beginning of the movie.
yeah, that was right in the beginning.
And that's got to be like, I mean, that's got to be ridiculously painful. Getting your leg stuck in one of these bear traps is just
Yeah.
like, it's just like an iron clamp that just, with
And
teeth, that just goes.
and at his age too.
Yeah.
And you see like when he takes his leg out and he's pulling it out and the teeth are still like punctured into the skin and probably even his bone.
Right.
I found it as a healthcare professional very hard to buy into the fact that this kid was walking. Well, let's say he was limping on it the next day.
Yeah,
As well as he
Yeah,
was.
healed way too fast, way too quickly.
I mean, just by all that was basically done to him, it was just wrapped. Like it's not
Yeah,
like
and
they
it's not
had
like
any
yeah,
other
and it's not
surgical
like they
means
have
to
like
fix it.
unbelievable medical care that they have access to. They luckily have band-aids. Forget about
Right.
painkillers. But there was only I think one part of the movie where you just wanted to punch someone, and you wanted to punch that kid because they were like you stay here and shut up and heal, and he couldn't do that. He had to get up on his bad busted leg,
Right.
and go up out of the safe hold and go walk around and look out the window. And,
Right.
and
And of course, he drew attention to
he
himself.
right, and then he brings the monsters back, and it causes the whole thing. And at the end of the day, like I understand where you gotta create the conflict to get things going,
Yeah.
but you just you sit there and you get you just even though that was the device to do it, you still wanted to punch him. You were just like, "Are you kidding me?"
Because he locks himself into the tank.
Like one, you shouldn't be able to. You shouldn't even be able to walk on that. And two, it's like I'm gonna tell you right now, like there's monsters outside, and I'm inside with a busted leg. Guess where I'm staying? Inside with a busted leg, going ow. Hopefully somebody brings me a sandwich.
kid-
I'm not gonna go out and try and do things. Are you kidding me?
The kid definitely makes bonehead decisions.
Yeah.
But you start to see him like at the very end, like he steps up and becomes strong and ends up helping to take down one of the creatures at the very end of the movie.
Then
But it definitely like they start to create like this panic between the sister and the brother, and they're two separate areas on what's going on. The daughter's helping to fight off one of the creatures at the the radio studio, and then he's trapped in this like cellar, basically, and the creature's looking to get down there and
Yeah.
like kill them.
Yeah.
And he's also trying to protect his little infant baby brother, his newborn. And Emily Blunt's trying to get back to them to protect them. And it was just the drama that went on. Krasinski does a great job, I think, of pacing that to where it climaxed at the end perfectly for all the characters. You know, like the stakes were just incredibly high, and you almost felt like anybody, when they killed off John Krasinski in the first film, like you could, I mean, to me, anybody could die in the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
And you would have been like, okay, you know, it sucks that the character dies, but like you could see that, you could definitely see that coming, because to me, anything's fair game.
Right. Now, one of the things I found funny, and I'm sure they avoided this on purpose, but like, you know, if you sit there and have like how things really would happen in the world, like, so they you know, Emily Blunt and her family, you know, find the guy, you know, and it's you know, his stronghold, and it's like it's where they can be safe, and he's just like, look, there's room enough here just for me. There's food and drink here enough just for me. You know, you need to get out like soon, like, you know, whether it's today or tomorrow, like, you know, you're not going to be here forever. And you just sit there and say, like, you know what, like, in the real world, in this situation, someone like Emily Blunt would be like, well, if you let us stay, I'll make it worth your while. Wink, wink. You know, because it's like at the end, you know, that's just the way the world goes. And like, they didn't touch on that at all. I'm just sitting there going, like I know how she can definitely stay. Like, she's going to make it worth his while. And he doesn't go that. But then you find out that they actually knew each other
Yes.
prior. But even still, you know, in the post-apocalyptic world, all those rules and niceties don't apply. Like, she still should have been like, I'm going to take this one for the team. I need my family to be safe. You know, I'll sleep with this guy, whatever.
I'm glad that they didn't go down that route, because I feel like that's a trope that's done in many of these types of films, where that's done. And I feel like it's just overplayed, and I'm glad that they didn't go that route. They didn't have to.
But it is the obvious bargaining chip that a woman could bring to the table.
Right.
You know.
Right. And I'm happy that they didn't actually use that.
So, and the other part that I thought was kind of funny is this: for whatever reason, Emily Blunt and her family refuse to wear shoes. They're just constantly walking around.
Well, they're just so used to it because they didn't want to attract any attention when they were on the farm.
Yeah, but like, shoes make noise and feet don't. I don't know, but like, you know, like,
well, that's the thing too.
Walking
like,
out.
how sensitive is the? See, that's the whole thing too. Like, how sensitive is the hearing? Like, is there a noticeable difference of walking on grass with sneakers versus barefoot? Cillian Murphy's wearing boots.
Right. Because at the end of the day, walking around in nature barefoot is dangerous.
Like, well, the kid got his freaking foot clamped.
You can step on glass. You can twist your ankle. Like, one of the scenes, there's one scene in Peter Jackson's King Kong that I always found unbelievable, is when what's the blonde's name?
Naomi Watts.
When Naomi Watts is on Skull Island and she's barefoot and she is running through the jungle full speed, and I'm just like, no, like, that hurts. You're gonna step on a rock. You're gonna trip over a tree branch. You're not gonna have that firm footing where you could go off full speed. You are gonna break your ankle very fast. Like, you just can't do that, you know. And, you know, maybe Tarzan could, because, you know, he's got, you know, he grew up that way. But I'm like, so these people are walking around, and I'm just like, man, like, at some, like, I can understand when you're home, you want to make noise, but like, they're going on a journey. Like, they're going to be walking miles. I'm like, you know what? I think you want to put some shoes on. So there's a point where the daughter's out doing her like journey, and she finds a train.
Yes.
You know, and there's all, you know, dead people on the train.
I thought this was a great scene.
It was a great scene, and I'm just sitting there going like, oh my God, she should be going, I just walked into the shoe store and, you know, taking shoes off the dead people and going, which one fits me, and take that and put some goddamn shoes on. I'm like, because I'm telling you, walking around barefoot outside, you know, hurt. Like, it's going to hurt. Like, I'm like, oh man, I'm like, look at that dead guy.
They definitely,
pair of shoes. They grabbed that.
I think Krasinski did such a good job of.
And he directed.
He directed again.
Did he direct the first one? He did. Yeah.
I think he just did such a great job with the themes in the film. Um, and his use of sound. I said this after, like immediately after we saw the movie. Like his use in sound is unbelievable.
Yeah,
And
and that was in the first movie too.
it was the first
good.
one he did so well with that. In this one, I think he takes it to a whole nother level because at one point he, you almost hear nothing like the daughter. Like sound goes completely blank. Like it's just
Yeah,
dead,
you
dead,
put it
dead
in
sound.
her frame of
In her frame of
yeah,
reference.
yeah.
And that was such an interesting twist for part of the film when they did that, when they had her perspective coming in. So that I thought that was really cool. Just very well thought out, a different type of horror movie, but one that was like a worthy follow up to the original film.
I'll
I
tell
really
you,
liked it.
in the very beginning of the movie, when they're in the prequel part, when like when they started people were getting in their cars and driving around, and all
Yeah.
hell started to break loose. It reminded me a lot of the scenes in Bird Box
Yes, that like the town
with
scene when they were in the town with Sandra Bullock.
Sandra Bullock,
Yes.
yeah, it reminded me of that, where chaos is happening and things.
People are trying to drive through it all.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And not that I feel that was a copy.
No.
It had a similar vein. It reminded me of it because they did do it really well. One of the parts that even though it looked really good on screen, I don't know if it made much sense. Is like she's driving, and there's a bus coming, and it's
Yes.
like her reaction is to just stop the car, go in reverse, and I'm like, well, I would have just drove around it. I'm like, but it kind of looked visually, it looked good when they were driving back, and then you see, they used that scene to give you the view of the monster coming out of the front
bus.
window pane of the bus, and
Yeah.
it looked cool, but you sit there and I'm sitting there because that scene is even in the preview,
Yeah, you see
and
that.
and every time I saw the preview, I'm just like, I would have just drove around, and then I'm like, okay, maybe it'll make more sense when I watch the
Yeah.
movie, and I watch the movie, and I'm like, nope, I would have said, let's just go that way, because it's a hell of a lot easier to do that than to go into reverse and try and navigate,
Backwards. Yeah.
where there's chaos all around. Like that would be hard to do if it was only you and the bus. But it's not just you and the bus. It's you and the bus and every other car on the road going this way and that way and
it's
going
everybody
over.
else in town.
It's total
Everybody that was
pandemonium,
in town that
total
people were leaving.
pandemonium chaos. But it was interesting to see how everything went from normal to
Chaos.
complete utter chaos, no looking back. This is like end of the world type of scenario. Like it just people just sitting in a baseball game,
Yep.
and all of a sudden, life as you know it is over.
Yep.
And that was kind of scary. That was like wow.
It was. I just thought it was so well done. Just really, really enjoyed the film again. I don't know if they're doing a third. I haven't read anything yet. I know the movie did well. It was one of like the best.
I could see them doing a third. Why not?
I could too, and like I wonder if they would continue to go into the future, or if they would tell more backstory. Like if they would talk about, like they didn't show much about like their first year, like John Krasinski's like first year, right? So like
Yeah.
they could always bring him back into the film and show a little bit more of the first year and what they did to figure out to stay safe.
Well, I'll be honest with you. So I would think that the studio is sitting there going, first one we took a chance on, but it did great. So we did a second one, and that did great. And I'm pretty sure they're sitting there going, somebody up there is going, let's do a third one. And if I'm Krasinski, I'm like, sure, but we got to do something different. And that's why I think if they do a third one, it's not going to be Emily Blunt or any other character that's been in it. It's going to be the same
situation,
same reality. It's going to be the reality.
Different area of the world.
Yeah, to different area of the world, different time period, different characters. They're gonna do something well. And I think
I actually would like to see that. And to me,
I don't know
like
that that's going to make as much money, but it'll be a good third movie, and then I think they'll stop.
To me, if they did it where the girl's message from the radio got out, right? So it's that perspective. It's the aftermath
Oh,
of that.
okay.
You know,
Yeah.
or maybe even like
Somebody
like,
else's
or
story, and then
someone's story,
something
and like
something
in
from
the
that
middle.
intersects.
Yes.
And then
Like,
how do they
in the
react to
middle
that?
of that, in the middle of that movie, all of a sudden
Yeah.
they hear about the radio signal, and
Yeah.
and then like from there it picks up for the second
Yeah.
half of the film.
Yeah.
You know, just something like that would be just like really cool to show like that interconnected universe.
Because
If they
sometimes
did
you
that.
want to see that. You don't want the story to end. You want to say, oh, what there's so much you could do here. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I kind of felt that way with Bird Box. I was almost like I enjoyed
They could-
Bird Box, and I'm like I almost wish like they told another story or more or after
Yes.
or I was like I always wish there was a scene like I when I saw Bird Box, I'm like I feel like this was just like the first installment of a series. Like it would be an ongoing story.
Right, like there should be a continuation.
Like this would have
from
been
that
like the
ending.
opening. What do you call the pilot? This
Yes.
is. It felt to me like the pilot of a show or a series where this is where it was all introduced, and then now what happens?
Right.
And it wasn't. It was just a 2-hour movie. But on I'm gonna say Netflix.
It was Netflix, yeah.
Netflix.
You know,
But, yeah.
I think originally when this all came out, I thought for sure that it was just going to be a solo film for A Quiet Place. And then I think within months after the initial
You know
release,
what? It did.
they
it
announced
made
the
a
second
lot,
one.
It made a lot of money the
Yeah.
first one, and
I
it
just
was
think it was a
very,
low budget film.
and it was very highly critically acclaimed.
Yeah.
Like it got a lot of good reviews, and a
Yes,
lot of
it did.
buzz. And you sit there and you say, yeah, well, it wasn't a paint by numbers sci-fi.
No,
film.
it was different. It
was different. It was artistic. It was driven. It had
was
a good
very
cast.
very thoughtful. Like everything,
You know?
everything seemed very well thought out. And I thought most of the second film was the same exact way. I go back to like how Krasinski used sound in this film, and it was so well done.
Yeah, and it was different. And at some point somebody's going to have to wake up and say, well done, unique, individual, artistic films make money.
Yes,
It doesn't have to be.
it doesn't have to be
It doesn't have to be
these billion
formula.
dollar.
It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
formula. Right? It's the same thing over and over and over again. Because then
But
you
people-
have these breakout films that people are going to remember.
But people are going to try to copy this.
Well, yeah, there's always going to. Well, that's the thing. There's always going to be copycats. That's the thing that sucks. Is because nobody has an original thought, and they see somebody else with an original thought, and they say, "Let's copy that." Well, that defeats the whole purpose of original thought. Make your own movie with your own stamp. And for many many years, there was enough of that,
Yeah.
which made movies an art and cinema an art form. And today you don't see it as much, but it's. I think these things come full circle. Eventually, people get bored with the product, and somebody's got to say, "Well, let's shake things up a bit. Let's make good movies that are not product." And it's like, wow, what a novel idea! Make an artistic film.
I think it's
Wow.
what Krasinski did here. I thought he did such a great job.
I'm curious how much budget they had for the first movie. I bet you it was not. I bet you they spent all their budget on the monsters.
On the CG portion
Yeah,
of it.
and that was all they had enough.
Well, because
for.
they had so many practical effects.
Well, you know what, and that's what you do when you have too much money. You don't have to get creative. You like when you have just enough, you got to say, okay, I have just enough money to do this. What am I going to do with the rest of the time? Well, let's play with sound a little bit.
Right.
Let's get some good actors that do some good acting.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden, like, wow, what do you call that? I don't know. Need built something like necessity, like
Okay.
when
Yeah. I know what you're trying to say.
when you're behind the eight ball, you gotta do creative things to fill
Right.
the time and the space, and what comes out of that necessity is usually a lot more artistic and interesting than if you had you were able to do whatever you want and throw as much money at it and
Right.
CG
If you're
and
given,
music.
here's everything,
Like,
go
yeah,
do
like,
what
oh,
you want.
You're forced to make something interesting out of little money.
I mean, that's just such a great word. Like it was just interesting. The creatures were so
Yeah.
original. It was a good story. I wouldn't mind seeing a third film, and if they were able to like wrap it up some way.
And I would consider it sci-fi.
Yeah, sci-fi horror.
Sci-fi with a little bit of
Little
horror
horror.
vein.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To
and
me, it's not all out horror, but I definitely say
sci-fi with a slight tinge of horror, and
yeah.
and I think it was both movies. I think were refreshing, and different from what we've
Yep.
seen in a while, and that's one of the things that we look for. We look for the the special experience, the special type movie,
Yes.
like something that stands out of the ordinary, something that you sit and think, wow, I've never really seen
I
anything
mean,
like
sure,
that.
we definitely do. We do a lot of our genre films that we typically
Yeah, I mean,
that's kind of like our go-to. But even then, like you'll hear us talk. Well, let's for example, if we're talking about the MCU and the Marvel films, there's a bunch of them that's a very
Formula driven,
formula driven,
formulaic, yeah.
formulaic. Yeah,
But that's okay. But those are comic book
cinematic
movies, and we're
cinematic
comic book
series.
guys. We're comic book guys, and
But
we're
we
comic
have-
book movie guys.
But we have no problem like picking those movies apart.
Sure.
That it's just pure formula, and it's not anything original.
Oh yeah, and at the end of the day, if you look at, I don't know that there's not one Marvel Cinematic Universe movie that I give 4 stars. There's not one, and I would be hard pressed to give any of them 3.5. Maybe.
Winter Soldier was.
See, I barely gave that 3. Even my favorite one, Ragnarok, I only gave 3. But I think the best one might have been Avengers Infinity
Infinity
War.
War.
That might have been like a 3.5 star movie.
No, that was good.
That one I really enjoyed. But all the rest of this, now, go to DC. I gotta give
Different story.
Gotta give the Dark Knight 4 stars. Dark Knight with Heath Ledger. With
Dark
Heath
Knight
Ledger.
Ledger, yeah.
That's a 4 star movie. Oh, it's a 4 star movie. It's pretty. If it's not, it's as close as you're gonna get.
Oh man.
But yeah. So wait. So Quiet Place. A Quiet Place.
Yes.
A Quiet Place.
What do you think?
We never did a review for A Quiet Place, right?
No, we wanted to. We were trying. We were going to try to squeeze in a Quiet Place review before Quiet Place 2 came out, and kind of do like a one.
No, but
review and then
were
two.
we even doing reviews when the first one came out?
No,
That was before.
no, that was like right before
Okay.
we started doing it.
Yeah. So I think the first Quiet Place, solid 3 stars, if not
Yeah.
3.5.
Yeah,
Leaning
I
towards
agree.
3.5, and this one I think is like 3,
Yeah,
which is good.
yeah.
You know?
No, I definitely think. I still think the first movie was better, but this by far was not like a. I don't think it's like it's that. I don't think it was like it's not like it's worse. I'm not trying to say that it's worse because I'm not looking at it in that way.
Yeah. No, me neither.
To me, it's like it was really good, just not as good as the first one. That's what I would say.
And don't say, "Oh, Johnny, John. Well, how could it be you didn't give it 4 stars?" Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't
give out
I don't
very
give out
many
4
4
stars
stars.
too easily. And trust me, I give out 4 stars. I give them out, but
It's not very often.
yeah. And in the
Few and far
last,
between.
yeah, in the last, I want to go with the last 20 years because I really think I really enjoyed the 90s, but from 2000 on, I really, really hard. I haven't given out 4 stars too many times in the last 20 years, but I have done it.
Once upon a time in Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Social Network, maybe even Her, Dark Knight. There's some really, really, and you got to sit there and say, these are the movies that are just, off the scale. They are treasures to hold up, and then 3.5 is more common, and 3 stars is a lot more common, but there's nothing wrong with 3 stars. 3 stars is a good
Yeah.
rating. 3.5 is like, wow, really good, and 4 stars is just like when you get into the 4 star region, you're talking about you can hold your own with the best movies ever made. This is like a great movie. They don't do that too often these days, and I don't think they're trying to. They're not aiming to.
A lot of it's more about quantity than quality. But this was a quality film.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good franchise, and like I said,
Yeah.
I really hope to do a third.
It's a unique franchise. I hope they do a third just to kind of like
I think
wrap
they
it
will.
up. I really do. I guess we'll maybe look for an announcement
I would be
enough.
very surprised if they did. I would be very surprised. You would almost sit there and say, why
wouldn't
wouldn't they? What's
Because
that's
like you
so-
said before, the budget that they had and how much money they had. I mean, this was probably like one of the first big blockbusters since the pandemic hit. Like this movie brought us back to the theater.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree because I even remember I think it did break a record too. Like
It did really,
I don't know
really
what the
well,
record
I
was,
think.
but like the most money in the past.
And most money, I think, in the past year, well, I think,
Yeah.
where its opening weekend. And then after that, it was the Conjuring film, the third Conjuring movie. The Devil Made Me Do It came out after that. And then that even succeeded over that.
So another movie that we had seen in the theater was Nobody, and
Yep.
we hadn't. We're probably going to do a review of that, but we wanted to do this one first. And like we said, coming out is the Black Widow.
Black Widow's the next big thing we're going to see.
Definitely want to see Black Widow.
Yep.
Definitely going to do a review of the Black Widow. And I mean, I think that's coming out first, and then Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad, I think, is
And
either
that's-
late July or early August.
And that's just going to be goofy, but that'll be fun. That'll be fun and goofy,
Yeah.
kind of like the first one, kind of like the Harlequin movie. It's just going to be goofy.
But you got to remember, James Gunn is directing it.
Right, but I'm pretty sure the only character they brought back is
Harley Quinn.
Is Harlequin,
No.
like superhero, like
No,
Suicide Squad wise. Maybe.
Captain Boomerang.
Oh, they brought back Captain
Yep.
Boomerang. We'll see
She's
if
there. And Amanda Waller, of course, is in it as well.
the girl
Original.
in charge.
Yep,
Yeah,
Viola
Viola
Davis.
Davis. Yeah.
Yep.
See, I like
They
Viola
brought-
Davis.
they brought her back.
You know, well, I'm glad they brought back Captain Boomerang. Maybe.
Oh, and Rick Flag, the guy who was like the soldier boy that like ran them. That
Gotcha, yeah.
he's
But in terms
he's
of the
too.
actual people in
Like the
costume,
villains?
just Harlequin and Captain Boomerang.
Boomerang, I think those are the
Well,
only
hopefully
two.
that maybe that'll give me another little tiny spike for my first appearance, Captain Boomerang. You know.
So
So
I think,
just to give you a little bit of think of a sense of time, first appearance of Captain Boomerang in the Flash came out before Fantastic Four #1. That's how old that is. You know, it's kind of interesting. Like the Silver Age for DC started a number of years before the Silver Age of Marvel.
Right.
There was a lot of comic books that came out by DC with first appearance, Supergirl, like this all was before Fantastic
Before
Four
all that.
'1. A lot of stuff was going on. You know, you sit there and you look at the years of the book, you're like, oh my god. I'm looking at my Flash book, I'm like, oh my god, this is before Fantastic Four '1, and it's not the first appearance of the Flash. It's like, you know, it's
Right.
Flash 117. Flash was, you know, the Silver Age Flash was around for a couple of years before FF1 came out. I'm like, wow. But it's funny, you know, this character like that makes it into the film, and he's a funny one to bring in because he's such a goofy character in the Suicide Squad. He's got his pink unicorns, whatever. He's pretty funny.
I bet you that's coming back too.
But no, looking forward to Black Widow, which is not this weekend coming, the
Next
following weekend.
Yeah, a week from tomorrow,
Yeah, and that was originally supposed to come out
May of 2020.
2020, and they just held off.
Yep. But no, a lot of good movies coming out later this year. You got the second Top Gun. You've got the next Ghostbusters.
Oh,
film,
and apparently
James
I have to
Bond.
watch the first Top Gun movie before I watch
Oh my
the second
God,
one.
this
It's
guy hasn't seen the first one.
one of the okay. So for the record, I have seen more films from the 80s than any other decade, much to my detriment because I consider the 80s to be one of the worst decades in film history. But, you know, it's when I was growing up and I saw a lot of films. But at the end of the day, you cannot see every single film. And one of the films I didn't get around to seeing was Top Gun. What am I going to do? But I have seen all the Ghostbusters films.
We're gonna change all that.
I have seen all the Ghostbusters films.
thank goodness for
and
that.
I'm looking forward to, what is it called? Ghostbusters
Afterlife.
I feel like I've been watching previews of that movie for a year.
Well, it's the same preview because they haven't released
Yeah,
a new one.
but I tell you, it looks that looks like fun. That looks
Yeah.
like fun. I'm actually looking forward to that.
Me
And
too.
that'll be a nice departure from the debacle of the other Ghostbusters movie, which with the all women cast, which was horrendous.
There were some funny parts of that film. Overall, I wasn't a huge fan of it, but there were some
hated
parts
it.
that I did enjoy of that movie.
And this movie is not related to that at
No.
all. This
No,
is like
this is all going back to the original two films, and it's a continuation from there. So
that movie. I can tell you right now, Ghostbusters Afterlife is going to make a ton of money. That's going to
I
be.
think it will.
That's going to have
I'm waiting for the next trailer to
buku
drop.
box office bucks.
Yeah. So a lot of good stuff coming out towards the second half of this year. So
Yeah.
we will hopefully get to see a lot of them and review them for you guys. So we are going to sign off, I think. But overall, my opinion, if you haven't seen A Quiet Place Part 1 or 2, go see it.
Go see 'em.
Well worth it. And you know what?
Yeah.
If you can, if you feel safe enough to do it, go back into the theater. They're doing a great job trying to make everyone stay safe at this point.
Well,
a
you
lot
know,
of the
at the end of the day, get vaccinated.
Yeah, if you can get vaccinated, do it. There's a lot of states
vaccinated.
right now that their mandates are all starting to change. So Hopefully that's a positive thing where you are. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time at the movies.
At the movies.
Cheers.
Cheers.